He admitted it before he died. A calm, almost emotionless confession from one of the most notorious serial killers in history. But there was a problem. There was no proof. For more than 50 years, the murder of a 17-year-old girl existed in a strange, frustrating space. Not unsolved, but not officially solved either. Investigators believed they knew exactly who did it. The family believed it too, and even the killer himself said he was responsible. And yet, legally, it meant nothing. No evidence, no confirmation, no closure, just a name and a question mark that refused to go away. Until decades later, when something almost invisible finally gave a voice to the truth. A single trace, a fragment no one could read before. And when it was finally understood, everything changed. This is the story of Laura Ann Aime, and the truth that took half a century to catch up with a killer who thought he had escaped it forever.
Laura Ann Aime is one of dozens of victims now linked by DNA.
Halloween night, 1974. Fairview, Utah. A small, quiet town where people felt safe. The kind of place where doors weren't always locked, and danger felt far away. 17-year-old Laura Ann Aime was living a normal life. She loved animals. She spent time around horses. She was close to her family, especially her younger sister. That night, she went out to a party, just like any other teenager. There was nothing unusual about it. No warning signs, no sense that anything was wrong. At some point later that night, Laura left, and somewhere between that moment and the next morning, she vanished. No one saw what happened. No one heard anything. No struggle, no witnesses, just silence. At first, it didn't seem real. People assumed she would come back. Maybe she stayed with a friend. Maybe she just needed space. But as the hours passed, that explanation stopped making sense. Then the days passed, and still nothing. That's when the fear started to set in. As Laura remained missing, the community began to mobilize. Search teams were organized. Volunteers joined in. Friends, neighbors, even strangers, all hoping to find some sign of her. Her family waited, desperately, hoping for good news, preparing for the worst. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, hope began to fade. There were no solid leads, no suspects, no direction. It was as if Laura had simply disappeared off the face of the earth. Then, nearly a month later, on November 27th, 1974, everything changed. In a remote area of American Fork Canyon, hikers made a discovery that would confirm everyone's worst fears. They had found human remains. It didn't take long for investigators to identify them. It was Laura, but what they found wasn't just tragic. It was deeply disturbing. The condition of her body told a violent story. She had been restrained. There were signs of severe physical assault, and evidence suggested something even more terrifying. She had likely been held captive, not just attacked and killed quickly, but kept alive for a period of time. There were indications of restraint, possibly handcuffs, signs of prolonged suffering. For investigators, one thing became clear immediately. This was not a random act. This was deliberate, controlled, and disturbingly methodical. Whoever did this had done something like this before. Around that same time, investigators across multiple states were noticing a pattern. Young women were disappearing, often in public places, with little to no immediate evidence of violence. And then, later, their bodies would be found in remote locations. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Same age group, same type of abduction, same calculated approach, and slowly, one name began to surface in connection with these cases. A man who didn't look like a monster. He was educated, well-spoken, charming, the kind of person people trusted, which made what he was hiding even more dangerous. Ted Bundy. At the time, Bundy was living in Utah, a law student, blending into society, while secretly becoming one of the most feared killers in American history.
He was executed in 1989.
Investigators began to suspect that Laura Ann Aime might be one of his victims. Years later, as Ted Bundy sat on death row, he began to talk. He confessed to multiple murders, some already known, others completely new, and among the names he mentioned was Laura Ann Aime. For many, it seemed like the answer, the confirmation they had been waiting for. But Bundy was not a reliable source. He manipulated information. He changed details. Sometimes he told the truth. Sometimes he didn't. He held back key facts, and without physical evidence to support his claims. His confession alone wasn't enough. Legally, it changed nothing. The case remained open, suspended in uncertainty for Laura's family. That uncertainty never went away. Even without answers, investigators made a critical decision. They preserved the evidence carefully, every sample, every piece of material connected to the case, because they understood something important. Science evolves. In the 1970s, DNA testing didn't exist the way it does today. Even in later decades, the technology wasn't advanced enough to analyze degraded samples. And Laura's case, the evidence was extremely limited, small, damaged, difficult to work with, but they kept it anyway, because one day they hoped that science would catch up. Decades later, that moment finally arrived. Advancements in forensic science made it possible to extract DNA from samples once considered unusable. Tiny fragments, degraded material, even mixed DNA, cases that had been silent for years, were suddenly speaking again. Laura Ann Aime's case was reopened. The evidence was tested once more, using technology that didn't exist when the crime happened. And this time, there was a result. A clear male DNA profile, something investigators had never had before. It was entered into a national database, compared carefully, analyzed thoroughly, and when the result came back, there was no uncertainty, no ambiguity, just one name, Ted Bundy, on April 1st, 2026. Authorities officially confirmed it. Laura Ann Aime's case was finally closed, not based on a confession, not based on suspicion, but on undeniable scientific evidence. After more than 50 years, the truth had been proven. For investigators, it was validation. For the system, it was resolution. But for the family, it was something far more personal. Closure. After decades of questions, they finally had certainty. This case is about more than just one crime. It's about time, patience, and the power of persistence. It shows that evidence, even when it seems useless, still holds the truth. It shows that technology can rewrite the past. And most importantly, it shows that justice doesn't always disappear. Sometimes, it just takes time. This breakthrough may help solve other cases, other families, other victims who have been waiting for answers. For 50 years, the truth remained hidden, locked away in evidence no one could understand. Until finally, it was revealed. A killer who confessed, a system that waited, and science that refused to give up. He thought he got away with it, but in the end, the truth caught up, and this time, it didn't let go.